What are the specific techniques that you would use typically when you have to influence team members and stakeholders, especially in cases where you do not have formal authority?
That's probably my entire life for the last 13 years. I strongly believe in using acronyms. They help me remember things and make it easier from that point of view. So in this case, I have this acronym called LIE, Lie. So the first and foremost, if you really want to exert influence or have an influence over someone over whom you don't have any formal authorities, for you to be able to listen to them. You will be surprised how many times it so happens that, by just being there and listening to someone about what's happening in their life, about, what are they thinking about, what their challenges are, about what their ideas are, and just being there, um, makes them feel heard and makes them feel supported. And in return, they want to do something whenever you ask them for. So while that's not the original reason why you do the listening, but if you do listen to people uh, without having any intention behind it, that, okay, I'll listen to him and then I'll ask him for that, because that people can actually sense really fast. So if you can listen to someone without having a personal agenda, that builds influence. The second, which is I, stands for influence, which is you have to give influence to get influence, which means that, when someone reaches out for help, when someone has a need, where, you can actually help them out, but it is not your responsibility or whatever, so that it so happens so many times that someone reaches out to you for some help, which is not necessarily part of your job responsibility or whatever you may want to call it, but then you still go that extra mile to kind of, help people out in whatever way and form that you can. That builds influence. So, and again, never do it with the intention of, I'll do this and then I'll get this from that person. So genuinely be helpful and give influence. Let others influence you in that perspective. That builds influence, so that, tomorrow when you need some support from them, when you need something that they can help you with, they're always eager to kind of, help. And last but not the least, but in fact most important, is to develop expertise. So with expertise and authority, you build influence. So for example, if you are considered to be the best at what you do, or let's say, for example, you are the best at, let's say, holding a facilitated conversation. You are the best at making a presentation in front of 5,000 people. You're the best at, getting someone who's not happy and convert them into someone who's kind of, not happy, whatever it is that you do. So if you can actually develop that expertise and become an authority in whatever topic it is that you are running, that gives you influence. And when you do all three in combination, is when it kind of, becomes a flywheel, so that at any point in time, you need any help, any support, you want to influence somebody's thinking, you want to influence somebody's actions, um, you are able to do that without um, doing what people call politicking. I mean, while it's not necessarily a bad thing, you need to be politically savvy, know what people want and what people need, and what are they willing to do in order to get that. But at the same time, um, uh, awareness is good. Actually, doing it is probably not that great, because you end up alienating people. In the last maybe 12 years, not a single one of my suggestions that I've given to my customers has been declined by them. I mean, I'm grateful for them for the trust that they've placed in me, but uh, it's not incidental. I mean, it has been intentionally cultivated that way by me being there for them, listening to their challenges, even if I can't do anything about it. I mean, if they have a problem with their account manager, they reach out to me and say, okay, Mukesh, I'm having this issue. Can you help? If I can, I do. If I can't, I tell them I hear you, but nothing much can be done. Even just that
Got it.
tells them that they can always reach out to me, and that confidence that they feel that anytime that they will reach out to me, I will be there for them and do what is right for them. Gives me the influence over them that every time I reach out to them, they respect the suggestions that I give. And unless I'm being completely stupid, which I try not to be, they do agree and accept whatever suggestions and ideas that I present to them. So that's the key, I think.
So I guess most of it is around trust, right? The
Yeah.
level of trust that you've built over years with your interactions, with your expertise, that kind of comes back to our life principles. And then because you now have that trust quotient, they are ready to do it for you.
And
That's really
sometimes it's also not just about having a past experience of done something like that. So sometimes what happens is, I can give you an example. There is a customer here in Singapore who was struggling with a particular issue, and it wasn't being resolved. And someone suggested to them that, why don't you talk to Mukesh? And they reached out to me, and out of nowhere, I mean, I'm not relevant to their account or for that matter, anything at all. But they reached out to me, and I kind of, did whatever I could to help their resolve their issue. Couldn't fully resolve it, maybe, partially did. And now I know that, anytime I go back to them for anything that I want, even though, so the trust was not built by my actions with them. The trust was built based on my actions with somebody else. So they told that, if you go to Mukesh, whatever can be done, he will do it.
right.
So it is not necessary that you build the trust one-on-one with that particular person.
Right.
If you've done it well, the authority or the influence gets transferred from someone else as well. So if,
Got
for example, if I trust you and you tell me that, you go to this person and he'll take care of you, then I implicitly trust the other person as well. And
true.
that's the influence that I'm talking about, which is kind of, not necessarily through one-on-one trust, but can be transferred as well.
Got it. Yeah, yeah, true. Um, Moving on, in your role, you would be working across like cultural boundaries now, even probably generational boundaries, right? As newer workforce, I mean, the next generation enters the workforce. So, with them, do you see any differences here? Do you have to adopt your strategy? Do you have to keep polishing it?
Yes, not just with them. I think it also depends on which culture that you're communicating with. So, for example, if I'm talking to customers in Singapore or Singaporeans in Singapore, the way you approach things is different vis-a-vis when you talk to somebody in India or Sri Lanka, or for that matter, Indonesia, or for that matter, Japan, Germany, US. So some cultures are kind of direct. So for example, when I'm talking to my German counterparts or Singapore colleagues, they prefer a more direct communication.
Right.
So that's also kind of you need to be able to understand the nuances of the culture that you are working with. When it comes to the generational difference, I think I'm probably you included. We are probably the only generation who has kind of been sandwiched between two very extreme generations. So when I work with the people who are pretty senior to me, they expect a certain level of respect just for the age and the experience. Whereas the next generation of employees, they don't want to respect you for your age or experience. They want to respect you for your authority, for your expertise, and for the influence that you bring to them. And whether or not you talk sense. So that's all that matters to them. So you need to be very clear about what you're talking about. No rambling, no, expecting respect without earning respect in a way.
Right.
So that's something which is different. Plus, um, every generation is different, and I do not want to paint a picture of the next generation as one cohesive unit. I've spoken to people who have been passionate and are willing to go the extra mile, and I've also met and worked with people who are laid back and don't want to, take too much stress because they've seen their parents lose their jobs at a moment's notice, and they're kind of, they don't have any loyalty to the organization that they work with at all. And I've also met and worked with people who are very passionate about the environment, sustainability. Um, uh, they want to grow fast, so which means that they're always looking at opportunities to grow, opportunities to stand out. So with them, you need to be able to give them the opportunity, give them expose them to newer opportunities, allow them to kind of either shine or fail spectacularly. So that's what they're looking at. So either ways, they want to do it spectacularly. So even if they fail, they want to fail spectacularly. If they succeed, they want to do spectacularly. So again, so something that the previous generation probably never did. So they played it safe. So they want to avoid or minimize risk. And these are nuances that you need to kind of, comes with experience, comes with understanding and knowing the people you're dealing with, knowing what they want to achieve in life, what their ambitions are. So you get to know all of this when you listen to people. So that's where you build the influence with them as well.
Got it. Yeah. Again, emphasizing the importance of listening, empathetic listening, that too. Another dynamic that hit us mainly after COVID was the entire hybrid or remote and all of that, right? It was a different era prior to that when you were actually meeting people and developing this kind of a rapport with them face to face. Have you had challenges in a remote or in a hybrid setup?
There are challenges. I would not say challenges, but it's very different. Um, I personally prefer, my personal style is to kind of always meet face to face wherever possible. So if it is not possible, then I go virtual. But one of the things that we did really well as a team, the team that I work for, is that we have these informal coffee conversations 2 times a week. Mine is a global team, so we have people from Japan, Singapore, China, Latin America, US, Europe. Um, so we have two coffee conversations, one during time that suits the Asia folks, and another time that suits the American folks. Though we try to join as many as possible, but preferably, and those don't have any agenda at all, and those are not really um, uh, can be work related. We can discuss work, but not necessarily work related. It's just like, you bump into each other at office and sit down for a coffee and chat about what's happening, what are you thinking, what's top of mind, and things like that. So that's exactly what we do. Sometimes, in fact, the last one we did 2 days back, we started off with someone commenting upon a mandatory training that all of us, every single person in the company had to go through around discrimination and bias, and it went to politics. It went to somebody's health, to somebody talking about their dog's health, to somebody talking about haircuts, a beard, and things like that. So that banter, which is not necessarily agenda driven, is important. Whether it happens in person or whether it happens virtually doesn't matter. Of course, it needs to happen. And if you come to office or if everyone comes to the office, it happens incidentally because you bump into each other. But when you don't go to office, then you have to make it intentionally, which means that you need to find time on your calendar. And another thing, one of the things that we have realized is if you have to block time on somebody's calendar to catch up, um, uh, the chances are that you will not, because You have to find half an hour because that's the minimum time that someone wants to book on somebody's calendar. And then scheduling comes up. Everybody's calendar is full. Even though they're free, they would have blocked it for reading something, or they blocked it for something else, even though they're free, right? So you don't know, but because the calendar is blocked. So nobody generally kind of, reaches out on Teams just saying, hi, how are you? Which is something that I learned to do.
Right.
I think one of the things that helped me a lot was during COVID, I was part of a small community called the Thought Leaders Business School. And that community, being part of that community, taught me so much about how do you build a culture, how do you create rapport, how do you stay connected, and why staying connected and building that rapport virtually is super important. And how do you go about doing it? So
Right.
I was fortunate enough to kind of, learn from them. Very simple things as well. So, for example, one of the things that I do whenever I host a meeting, when I am the host, I generally, when people come in into the virtual meeting, they'll always hear a music playing. So whether it is flute, whether it is tabla, whether it is sitar, whether it is whatever, So because everyone is coming from a different context, and in order for you to kind of, have a productive conversation, everyone needs to come and be in a same context. And I realized that music has the ability to do that. And if you play, let's say, for example, a sitar or a flute, and everyone comes in and everyone is hearing the same music, it kind of, grounds you and brings you to the present moment. And from there, you can actually go forward. Another thing that I've learned is that, every meeting that I attend to, whether or not anyone else has their camera on, I will always keep my camera on, because number one, it forces me to pay attention, and number two, it shows others that I care about them, and that I'm actually paying attention. These are all little things which play a big role when it comes to virtually building that rapport and trust and influence over others in the long term. Little things, but goes a long way when done together.
That's really impressive, yeah. And I really like the idea of music because you need some connecting factor to check in, right? Meeting room,
Yeah,
once the door is closed, you're there.
yeah.
Here, you really need something. So, um, moving on to the last one. So, you earlier mentioned about expertise. So that's where I would want to hear your thoughts on how would continuous learning come into play? Because when you talk about an expert, you don't just become an expert and stay an expert in the changing world, right? There's so much of dynamism around us. Everything is changing so rapidly. So, any tips from your side? How do you stay updated, or how do you find time for continuous learning?
So, in my role, one of the things that I'm required to do or expected to do is to have conversations with and host communities, which means that every community that I host, I need to be able to speak their language. So I'll give you an example. I run a CIO community for retail as an industry, CPG as an industry, oil and gas as an industry, utilities as an industry, automotive as an industry. I run communities for finance, for customer experience, or CX, or security as a topic, or manufacturing and supply chain as a topic. So I need to be able to speak their language. And in order for me to be able to do that, I need to be constantly learning procurement for that matter. So one thing that I have ensured to do is that, I have 1 hour of time blocked on my calendar as learning time. So every day between 9:30 and 10:30 is my learning time. So I do not give that slot to anybody else unless it is super critical. So, and I curate my content. So, for example, I have a Feedly account in which I have maybe 700 blogs that I curate kind of, and Every day there is about 120 to 140 blogs that are published in that list of blogs that I follow. And I skim through all 140 of them, but pick maybe, 5 or 6 to actually read through. And that I do during that 1 hour of time that I have blocked in my calendar. Same thing I do with my YouTube. So I have a very curated list of channels that I subscribe to. And every day during my commute, whether it's going to office or coming back from office, I try to look at all the subscribed videos and kind of, look at anything that I find interesting or I want to dive deeper on. I kind of, add it to my watch later list. And every time I have some, let's say I have a 20-minute time break, which, I can use to kind of, watch a 20-minute video. Or if I have a, let's say, a 1 hour meeting which got canceled, so I can actually sit down and watch a 1 hour video on a particular topic. And same way, I kind of, pick topics that I want to learn about and go and sign up for a course on, let's say, Coursera or LinkedIn Learning or edX. And every quarter, I try to find something that I kind of, either learn anew or refresh my understanding on. And on top of that, one of the things that I really like to do is to kind of, read books. Sometimes I read business books, sometimes I read fiction, sometimes I read something else. So you'll never find me without a book. Right now, I'm reading Ramayana,
Nice.
the Valmiki Ramayana, translated by Vivek Debroy. Uh, the Everyone does all of this in some form or factor. What I feel differentiates what I do from a lot of other people is that I'm extremely intentional about whatever I'm reading. So, which means that, I'm always thinking about something, right? So, for example, right now the conference is top of mind for me. So, everything that I read, I look at it from the conference point of view. Okay, so for this conference, how can this help? Can I apply this on this conference? Can I apply this on this conference? Can I apply this on this conference? Uh, uh, this is one thing, right? So there are 2, 3 things constantly running in my mind. So every time I'm reading something, watching something, uh, reading a book, I'm constantly thinking intentionally about what is it about this that I can apply in whatever is top of mind for me. It doesn't, I may not apply anything at all. So, for example, I'm reading Ramayana and I may not apply anything from what I read to the conference or for anything that I'm currently thinking about. But that intention and that effort to think about whether something is relevant that I can apply is the important thing. Whether or not I apply or use what I've learned is not material at all, because um, one of the things about our minds is that whether you do something or you don't do something, if you think something, it is as good as doing something, because all the chemicals that your mind releases, it is the same whether you do that or whether you imagine doing that. It is exactly the same physiological reaction that your brain has. So that intention and that thinking about, okay, whether there is something that I'm reading or I'm listening to or I'm watching that I can apply to what is top of mind for me, uh, is a repetition kind of, and also the intention about application, which you spoke about right at the start, right? So it is not enough to learn, because if you just learn, you tend to forget. But if you learn with the intention of application, you tend to remember. If not everything, at least that part which could potentially you might have considered that, okay, this might be useful in this context. And next time when that context comes up, your brain functions that way, that so you link once, and then either one of the things that comes up, you can actually automatically, the other thing comes up as well.
That's really a very interesting way of doing it. I've never thought of this level of a connection. Sounds like a very interesting one. I should definitely try it. So, if you are okay, we could take the next 5 minutes for the rapid fire. One word to describe your learning routine.
Being intentional.
One habit that changed how you learn.
Listening to audiobooks.
Next big thing on your learning wish list.
Creating an app using AI.
That's really nice. One book or resource you recommend for learning about influence?
Mm. I'll give two, if that is okay.
Sure.
So one is by Dan and Chip Heath. Uh, I'm forgetting the name of the book now. Switch, if I'm not wrong. No. Um, uh, Sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the book now.
That's okay. No worries.
Dan and Chip Heath, Switch is the book. Yeah, the book is
Sure.
Switch. And the second one that I recommend is Influence. It's by Yona Berger, if I'm not wrong.
Sure. And maybe in one word, how would you describe the key to successful collaboration?
Serve. So always be willing to serve, and everyone will serve you in return.
Thank you so much. That kind of sums it all up very well, that you give what you get, sort of. So
And you have to first give in order to give. So a lot
absolutely.
of times we always want someone to give us something
Yeah.
without us having given. So Gary Vaynerchuk has a really interesting book. I think it is Jab, 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 Hook. I think if I'm not wrong, that's the book.
Uh-huh.
So you give before you receive. You have to give at least 3 times before you can ask for something in return.
Thank you so much. I took way more than what I had asked for from your calendar.